Forget beef, this is what carnivores should be switching to, llama meat. Bolivia's health ministry says it's a healthier alternative to red meat, and it's becoming more popular since the World Health Organization warned that processed and red meat probably causes cancer. But in Bolivia they've always been partial to llama, and doctors say that's for a good reason.
It has a very low fat content, so when it's consumed, it contributes less to increase the levels of cholesterol in our system.
Llamas native to the Andean region are mostly known for their soft, shaggy wool, but recently they're arguably becoming more famous for their protein-rich, low-fat meat. And suddenly llama meat is appearing on menus everywhere all over Bolivia. Traditionally, llama meat was just eaten by indigenous Bolivians since pre-Columbian times. Now, because of growing demand from both tourists and locals, many high-end restaurants have started serving the meat, and they say diners can't get enough of it. This French restaurant in La Paz says its 2 llama dishes are so popular they sometimes struggle to meet demand.
This dish is really popular more than anything by foreigners who love to taste the llama meat more than lamb.
Bolivian llama meat has become so fashionable that it's even being exported.
I know that from our producers that are exporting it to Germany and to Europe because it's a healthy meat, right? And they export it there. It's commonly used by older people because there's low fat, there's not so much carbs in the meat.
Bolivia is hoping that this recent boom in llama is not just a flash in the pan and that consumers will continue to choose it as a healthier option to beef. But despite its many benefits, the health ministry still warns that, like most meats, it should be eaten in moderation. Dimitri O'Donnell, teleSUR, La Paz.
A new armed group has emerged in Syria under the name of the New Syrian Army. The group made its debut by publishing a video where they explain their aim is to fight the Islamic State group.
With the help of God, it will be the creation of a new Syrian army which will eliminate Daesh and all forces loyal to them from all factions.
The US website, the Daily Peace Area, relieved that the United States is considering arming fighters from the east of Syria, who moved to Turkey after they escaped Islamic State attacks. Analysts believe this new organization fits within the US scheme of training so-called moderate groups.
Everyone knows about the US training program and about its failure when those fighters either joined terrorist groups or were defeated, and the so-called Free Syrian Army was also supported by the US, and today it has no existence on the ground. Now the US is trying to confront the Russians indirectly through the introduction of new groups on the ground under the pretext that these groups are fighting terrorism.
This new group claims that its goal is to fight terrorism, but hasn't revealed the identity of its backers or financiers. Analysts see it as a US reaction to the Russians, who have exposed that the Free Army has little power on the ground and that other groups trained by the US have joined terrorist groups.
It is quite clear that the main objective is arming Daesh and not eliminating Daesh, and an armed group claiming to be moderate? This has been exposed as a lie. There are no moderates on the ground.
Detailed information is not yet available, but intelligence information seems to indicate that this group is essentially one of the largest fiction of the authenticity and development front, an extremist group which operated in the eastern region of Syria and which is affiliated to the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Nusra Front. Hazem Abdullah, teleSUR, Syria.
The freight rails here outside of Mexico City increasingly lack the once common Central American migrant. What was once their primary means to travel northward now seems to be off limits.
We are observing the situation of Plan Frontera Sur that has made most of our brother and sister migrants who normally would ride the train scared because of extortion, so they are now seeking other routes to get up there.
In July 2014, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto announced the Southern Border Program. The new policy that Peña Nieto claims is to defend migrant rights came after Mexico faced large numbers of Central American migrants in 2014.
The Southern Border Program has two purposes. One, to protect and defend the human rights of migrants that transit through Mexico. And two, to get to the international crossings in order so as to increase development and security in the region.
Rights defenders say the program is the opposite. Since it started operating, more than 600 immigration agents have carried out over 22,000 searches, and Mexico is now deporting 70% more migrants than the same time last year. They also say the program forces migrants to take even more dangerous routes.
What the Southern Program has done is re-victimize migrants, those that leave Central America, those brothers and sisters who are looking for better opportunities in life or who are feeling violent, have faced a security siege in Mexico and a control apparatus that criminalizes them and turns them into victims of migration policies.
This systematic victimization hits hard for thousands of Central American migrants who seek Mexico for refugee status, rather than the historic pattern of transit. Some argue that Mexico's decade-long drug war has spilled into their home countries, forcing them to leave.
They were going to kill me, my family, and they killed my cousin. They threatened me, and so that's why I want to go.
According to rights defenders, there are 11 new migrant routes that transit Mexico through territory controlled by organized crime. They say the number of human rights violations are dramatically increasing. Clayton, teleSUR, Tultitlán, Mexico.
The increasing importance that the struggle against gender violence has gained in Argentina has become a part of the public debate in the road to the presidential runoff. On one hand, the Buenos Aires city mayor and presidential hopeful Mauricio Macri has been strongly criticized for taking regressive measures such as shutting down the city's agency for victims of sexual violence and cutting 50% off the budget for the General Director's Office for Women.
They have an ideological position about the role of women, and all these topics that mean progress for us, which are a matter of dignity and human rights, have a minor role for them.
Cristina Fernandez Front for Victory has carried on several initiatives regarding this issue, like the creation of a body of public defenders that will assist victims of gender violence and establishing a special legal definition for femicides. Many of these initiatives have been endorsed by social movements and feminist activists.
This comes as a result of the historic struggle of human rights organizations and the women's movement, but also as a result of a political initiative which was to take that struggle and turn it into new laws and policies that allowed us to raise awareness about gender policies and about our role in society as women.
Social movements, activists and experts agree that there is a long way to go to achieve deeper cultural changes in this matter, and that taking the streets is vital to make this topic visible.
The term femicide, even beyond the legal category, means that women are being killed because of their female condition, whether it is done by their partners, ex-partners, or whoever it might be, but their body and the need to make them feel as an object is involved. It was very difficult for us as journalists to impose the term femicide.
Despite the achievements made in recent years, gender violence remains a problem to be fully addressed in Argentina. The contrast between the measures each of the political parties that will compete in the November 22 runoff have carried on shows that the turn to the right under Macri does not seem to be the path toward progress. Laureano Ponce, teleSUR, Buenos Aires.
For the past 14 years, since her husband was captured in combat, Ana Lucia has had to carry upon her shoulders the weight of the stigmatization for being the wife of a FARC rebel. But beyond that is the sorrow she feels every time she visits him and comes across the conditions under his being held.
We have lots of complaints regarding the health care. Some peers have even died in jail due to the negligence of the state. We have denounced that, carried out protests, and many other actions, but the situation remains unknown.
Despite of having never carried a weapon, Aurelio Sancol, a rural leader, is also part of Colombia's 10,000 estimated political prisoners. Aurelio recalls that, be it members of the insurgency or not, what all those convicted of political crimes share in common is the harsh treatment they receive.
Those who think different from the establishment, who come from renovated ideas and alternative change, are considered by the Colombian state and the oligarchy in this country as more dangerous than any other criminals. The standard criminals have no importance for them, as they don't pose a threat to institutionalism.
The lack of medical care and a differential treatment are among the reasons why some imprisoned members of the FARC have begun an indefinite hunger strike. As a gesture of goodwill within the current peace negotiations, they are demanding from the government the immediate release of those under serious illness conditions.
The government has been asked to provide a humanitarian solution, especially for those critically ill, terminally ill, or with serious combat injuries. If the release is not granted on humanitarian grounds, they will very likely die in a prison, as it has already happened with many others.
Now, the hunger strikers have called on United Nations representatives to verify the prison's conditions, which human rights advocates have said are not complying with international humanitarian law standards regarding political prisoners' treatment. Natalia Margarita, teleSUR, Bogotá.